Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. Well, so far, nothing on my ears. I'm still not. I'm still not hearing well at all. Now, as I film this, okay, I'm filming this on Monday morning, so I obviously haven't had my doctor's appointment. So we'll see that how that goes, and I'll keep you posted on that for all of you who might be concerned about that. Okay, Isaiah chapter 66, Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following, 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 is a progression of connecting the dots that I'm concerned with. But what I want to do today is to continue what I shared with you in yesterday's video. And that is that the sins that the Lord accuses Israel of committing in Isaiah 66, sins that he is looking forward to at the time of the first century, all right? Because as I've already shown to you, the New Testament writers apply Isaiah 66 to the first century generation. Stephen does in Acts chapter 7 when he quotes directly from Isaiah 66, verse 1, and draws on the motifs and the themes of Isaiah 66 to speak to and about his generation and their perversion of the temple. I shared with you from Isaiah chapter 58 how there was this facade, is the best word that I can use it. There was this facade of righteousness and holiness and sanctimoniousness in regard to the temple. It was there in Jeremiah chapter 7, as I shared with you. Now, I want to go to Matthew chapter 15, and I want to correlate that with Isaiah chapter 58. Because I tell you, there is such a direct connection. When you actually just sit down and you read Isaiah 58, understanding that it serves as a great deal of the background for Isaiah 66, okay? In Isaiah chapter 58, remember, the people were talking about, they were fasting. They were making such sacrifices to the Lord. And yet the Lord says, your sacrifices are for nothing but show. And just like in Isaiah chapter 29, the Lord said, this people draws near to me with their lips, and with their mouths do honor me. Their hearts are far from me. That's exactly and precisely what was going on in Isaiah 58. Now, that is exactly and precisely what was going on in the days of Jesus. Let me read just a little bit from a famous passage in Jesus' ministry, Matthew chapter 15. Then came the scribes and the Pharisees, who were from Jerusalem. They came to Jesus saying, why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders, not washing their hands before they eat? He answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of God? Because of your tradition. For God commanded, saying, honor your father and your mother, and the one who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, whoever says to father or mother, whatever profit you might have had from me as a gift is a gift of God, then he need not honor his father or his mother. Thus you have made the commandment of God of no effect by your traditions. Hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy about you. These people draw near to me with their mouth. They honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commandments of men. And then he called the multitude to him, and he said, that which enters the mouth does not corrupt a man, does not defile a man, but that which comes out of the mouth. For out of the abundance of the heart, as Jesus would say in John chapter 12, out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. So what was going on in Jesus' day? What was going on in Jesus' day was a redo of what was going on in Isaiah's day, what went on in Jeremiah's day, a great show of sanctimoniousness, a great show of holiness. That is precisely what was going on in Jesus' day, which was foretold in Isaiah 66. Now, let's proceed a little bit with Isaiah 66. Okay? Now remember, we have already seen Stephen applying Isaiah 66 to his day and to his time. Now it's actually an axiom that was true no matter what time, but he was most assuredly applying it to his day and his generation. And that context of Isaiah says, okay, it's going to be true that the man who kills a bull will be as the man who murders another man. The perversion of the worship of the temple and the depreciation, if you please, the derogation of the temple by Isaiah followed through into Matthew. It followed through into Acts chapter 7, into the entire ministry of Jesus. Now watch this. For time's sake, I'm going to skip down. The Lord says, they have chosen their ways, and their soul delights in their abominations. So I will choose their delusions, bring their fears on them. Now notice, this is critical, because when I called, no one answered. When I spoke, they did not hear, but they did evil before my eyes and chose that in which I do not delight. Okay. Remember now, in Isaiah 65, the Lord said, when I called, they did not answer. And remember, Paul, in Romans chapter 10, 20 and following, quotes verbatim from Isaiah 65, Isaiah 66, when I called, they did not answer. Paul applied that to his generation as he preached the gospel to them. Okay? Now, we come to Matthew chapter 23. And in Matthew chapter 23, Jesus pronounces 7, well, some say 6, woes upon Jerusalem and the temple for their sin, for their defilement of the temple. Just like Isaiah 66 predicted. And he said that judgment was going to come on them in that generation. Now remember, I shared with you yesterday where the Lord says, okay, if you want to brag about your feast days and your observance of the feast days, what you're bragging about is not for me. Because you're sinning. Because you're not feeding the poor. You're not taking care of the orphans. Which is precisely, by the way, precisely what James accused the wealthy of doing in James chapter 1 and chapter 5. Even chapter 2. So we have this long history of Israel glorying in the temple, glorying in their observance of the temple cultus, all the while having those external manifestations of righteousness with corrupt hearts. Isaiah 66 is reflecting that. But remember, Paul is applying Isaiah 65 and Isaiah 66 to his generation, just like Jesus applied Isaiah 65 to his generation, the filling up of the measure of sin. Do you see all these connections, ladies and gentlemen? That it is such an error to completely ignore all of this background data, all of these background prophecies of Israel in the last days, and fail to see those connections with what was going on in Jesus's ministry, in the first century ministry. Now watch this. The Lord said, because you have chosen that in which I do not delight. Because when I called, you did not answer. Therefore, I will choose their delusions. I will bring their fear on them. What they fear, I will bring on them, because when I called, they did not answer. Now look, folks, remember, Paul has applied these verses to what was happening in the first century. Jesus applied it, not verbatim, the concept in Matthew 23. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who stoned the prophets and killed those who were sent unto thee, how often I would have gathered you as a mother hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would not. Well, what is that? Well, what that is when I called, you did not answer. That's precisely what that is. So what did Jesus say? Behold, your house is left to you desolate. Now, the great question is, ladies and gentlemen, exactly where do we find a contextual break between Matthew 23, Jesus' response to the apostles' question about when the temple was going to be destroyed, and its relationship to the end of the age and the coming of Christ? Where do we find the delineation between all of that in Matthew 25:31 and following? And remember, in Isaiah 58, the Lord said, you want to talk about fasting? Here's what a true fast is. It is when you feed the poor. It is when you clothe the naked. It is when you feed those in prison and you set them free. What did Jesus say in Matthew chapter 25:31 and following? As the nations are gathered before him, and he says to the righteous, he says to those on his right hand, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. When I was in prison, you visited with me. When I was naked, you clothed me. That's Isaiah 58. And Isaiah 58 serves as part of that background of Isaiah 66, which is about the perversion of the temple and the Torah by Israel. Just like Isaiah 58 is, you're not observing my fast. My fast is feeding the poor. My fast is clothing the naked. You're not doing that. And in Matthew 25, Jesus said, he'll say to those on the left hand, I was hungry, you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, you did not give me a drink. I was naked, you did not clothe me. This is the background of Matthew 25. So I ask again, how is it that we can completely, totally ignore this prophetic, contextual relationship of the motifs and the elements of Isaiah, come to Matthew chapter 25 and say, oh, well, Matthew 25:31 has got to be about the end of the world. This is the judgment of the church. No, it's not. Has nothing to do with the church at the end of the so-called end of the Christian age. It is Jesus and the apostles drawing on this rich matrix of the Old Testament Now, next week, I'm going to show you how, just like Isaiah 58, just like Isaiah 66, the Lord says, okay, I'm going to bring on them their fear. I'm going to bring on them their what they do not desire, their delusions. I'm going to bring on them because when I called, they did not answer. Just like we are supposed to understand Paul, when he said in Romans chapter 10, 20 and 21, he quotes from Isaiah where when the Lord called, they did not answer. We are supposed to understand that what that meant was, guess what? I'm going to bring on them what they fear. And Isaiah 66 is quite explicit about that, just as Jesus was explicit about that when he said, your house shall be left unto you desolate. Okay, we're out of time for today. Don't forget this month's special. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. My two books, The Elements Shall Melt with Fervent Heat, 8070, A Shadow of the, quote, real end, unquote, question mark. It would normally cost you $47, $48. This month, March 2023, U.S. orders only, total delivered price, $32.50. Again, go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, click the banner, order the books. You'll be glad that you did. And as I said yesterday, in yesterday's video, the response has been excellent. I did not realize I did not have enough inventory. Well, I would have had. But anyway, I have more inventory coming. I have it ordered. But if we have to put your order on back order, when we mail it, I'm going to give you a free copy of Can God Tell Time for the inconvenience. All right, tomorrow, we pick up on responses to the objections to my brand new book, Temple to Telos. It will be video number 13, even though numbers 10 and 11 got deleted, not posted. I don't know what happened. So anyway, be with me tomorrow. I'll see you then.